Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to the Coffee, Health, and Science Podcast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in today. Before we begin, please share the Coffee, Health, and Science Podcast. Spread the word. Give us a good rating and review. Make sure you're subscribed, all that good stuff. We do appreciate it. It really helps us out. The coffee seed kits should be in the mail as you hear this. Stay tuned, and for those who were jumping in late to that list, we will get you on the second mailing list. Apologies for the delays. We're just, working things out here, getting everything packed up, doing what we do. Today, we are back to the Understanding Organic series. I don't want to say a series wrap-up, but a bit of a series recap and a bit of an overview. And today's guest is a true show favorite, regenerative organic farming specialist and integrative pest management specialist, Marybeth Sanchez, is on the line. Hello, Marybeth.
Well, hello, Jordan. How are you today?
Doing lovely this morning. Got my Purity coffee. Everything is good. I see you do too.
I've been having my coffee today. It is lovely. It is one of those mornings where it finally looks like there's like a 50% chance of rain. So at least it's not going to be hot. I don't have to worry about water. It's almost like a day off, even if it isn't.
Oh my gosh. And the craziness on the West Coast, we wish you the best in those crazy climate conditions. My gosh.
Well, rain would be nice. We have a lot of fires going on still, and they're just looking for a little moisture from the sky. But I don't know if it's going to get really that far south, unfortunately, but we'll see. We'll see. We at least have a chance. Oh, yeah, please.
Stay safe for us, Marybeth. Today we are talking about the soil food web. Today we are talking about what organic growing does to the end product. Why organic products seem to be better, more flavorful, more expressive in all of these different desirable traits. And even to call back to Sanjeev Chopra, who is a doctor at Harvard Medical, who said on this show that we're finding out that organic fruits and vegetables are probably healthier for you than non-organic fruits and vegetables. His words, not mine. And I don't think that surprises someone like you, Marybeth. But that's what I want to talk about today, because it's not a very well-studied field. There's not a whole lot of research out there. So how does that sound today as we dive into a recap of organic farming and the results that it has on the final products?
I love that subject. It's one of my pet thingies. Obsessions. Pet obsession, let's call it.
Let's begin with the soil food web. I want to really reemphasize this idea that it's not just about putting nutrients into the soil and giving nutrients to your plants. How would you summarize, how would you recap, how would you explain the importance of all the factors of the soil food web?
Well, you've got to realize that, that there's that old hippie saying of we're all one, we're all connected, but in a way we are all one. We're all are living off the same nutrients. Mm-hmm. We, the plants, the animals, we're all surviving off the same minerals, vitamins, amino acids, et cetera, et cetera. And we're just trading them back and forth. As one of us dies and decomposes, the other one picks it up, and the cycle keeps going. They call it nutrient cycling.
It's true.
And so it just makes sense that you would need these things. And to me, it just makes sense that you would want them in their most natural form, in their most natural decomposition, rather than to try to synthetically create them. Because when we synthetically create things, we tend to leave out things that we just didn't know were there.
Exactly.
Because we tend to think that we know it all already, and then tend to find out later we didn't. And things will blow up in our face or backfire in some kind of way when we least expect it.
Right.
So unfortunately, because of the way the world is, and it's exciting to have new innovations. New innovations sometimes are wonderful, but it really has to, over time, prove that it is superior to what they were doing before.
Right.
Which I think in the case of synthetic nutrients, they haven't proved that they are better. They just proved that when they, pumped some of that in a place where they didn't have nutrients because they depleted the soil, suddenly fertility was restored. However, it was a limited fertility because it didn't include feeding the soil food web.
Exactly. So would you say, when you say things are overlooked, would you say that farming was focusing on nutrients almost exclusively,
Exactly.
without any regard for things like microbes, the
Exactly.
microbial life in the soil, the fungal life in the soil that
Yep.
got obliterated. And didn't that lead to the Dust Bowl? Like when we first started this
Yes.
stuff, isn't that
Yes.
what
Yes.
kind of led to that huge
Well,
disaster?
that and the plowing,
Oh,
because this is
the
where
tilling.
no-till comes into the picture, because no-till is not just about having less to do or less eruption. With no-till, you're saving your fungal network, and your fungal
Right.
network is what holds your soil together. Like, when you're knitting and you drop a stitch, everything falls apart. Your fungal network holds your soil together so that it doesn't wash away, it doesn't blow away.
Doesn't
And
leach
you've got to
nutrients. I
yes.
don't want to interrupt you here, but this is a really important point and something that I did not
It
understand,
is.
which is I've seen really interesting video tests on people pouring just plain water or different liquids through a soil that has been
Yes.
sterilized versus
Yes.
one that has thriving microbial life. And the idea that
Yes.
fertilizers run off, pesticides run off, all of these things, it's because the glue isn't there from a robust microbial and apparently fungal
Correct.
population. That was really mind-blowing to me,
Correct.
and it's something that they don't talk about when they talk about things like runoff and erosion. Like I learned all about erosion in school, but they didn't talk about microbes. Maybe they didn't know it when they wrote the books. I don't know.
Well, the microbes, the biology, the bacteria and the fungi and the et cetera, the earthworms and arthropods and all that, they create soil structure,
Right.
which really makes the soil into a solid, spongy thing that doesn't just fall apart.
Right.
As opposed to, if you're lacking that biology, your soil becomes just dusty, sandy, silt, and it blows away, it washes away. There's nothing to hold it together. So the tilling, destroying the fungus year after year to the point that it just can't even begin to try to regenerate again, because people tend to till repeatedly. They don't even till just once in a season. I mean, the average farming operation. Every time they see a weed, they want to go till again. And I thought, oh, please. Okay, and here's the thing. Bacteria love, if you have a fungally dominated system, you won't have a lot of weeds because the fungus outcompetes the weeds for the available phosphorus.
Right.
So
I've
a lot
heard
of fungus, you won't have weeds. And so you'll know, but just by looking at your soil, if you're growing a lot of fungus, you're growing a lot of weeds, then you'll know how much, whether or not you've got a lot of good available phosphorus in there.
Wow.
Fungus is obviously the thing that most of us want more than weeds. But what weeds are doing when they start, they're usually the first things in line because they grow just so easy. And a bacterial dominated soil is also an alkaline soil. So your pH is pretty much determined by how much weeds you have compared to how much fungus. Fungus will be in an acidic soil.
Whoa. That's fascinating. And that probably varies from crop to crop, right? Not all. I was recently growing some blueberries that required an acidic soil, and I was running into a lot of problems.
Yeah. Blueberries love acid, but there's other factors involved.
Right.
But
but
the
still,
weeds,
a healthy soil is a healthy soil, right?
Right. But when the weeds first come, people usually just hate them because they're weeds. But what they're doing is they're bringing up desperately needed nutrients from down in the soil, and they're bringing them up and they're putting them in their leaves that will die off and be at the top. And eventually they're going to try to build soil and bring nutrients to the top of the soil, where eventually the next stages of succession will have more fungus involved. And the bacterial fungal ratio is constantly changing that way as you build up more and more organic matter at the top of the soil. And after a while, you're not having so much noxious weeds, you're having better weeds. And later you're getting more like grasslands and shrubberies, and later more trees and more conifers as your soil gets more and more fungally dominated over time. But it takes a long time.
Wow.
And humans tend to not really be patient people. So in order to speed things up, we do things like we make compost and compost tea, and then also the treatments like in the KNF farming, where you're just trying to really get extra biology is much faster than nature's going to be naturally producing it, and get everything really infused in, especially in places where the soil's been so depleted and it needs so much help.
Wow.
Which unfortunately there's a lot of places.
Well, that was a wonderful, wonderful overview. And it's important on the Coffee, Health, and Science podcast, especially because coffee is such a massively produced food product and it's so heavily pesticided and so heavily fertilized. We've now really covered many different angles of this picture.
And it can be done at a large scale also. All these practices can be done at large scale. I've seen them done.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not an unreasonable thing to ask a large scale farmer to at least start using compost instead of other things.
You're so right. I was just down on the Purity Coffee farms before COVID, and I saw it in action on a large scale. That was one of the questions.
Yeah.
So it's really important, and we've covered many different angles from, the not using pesticides because of the horrible effects on the environment and your body, not using fertilizers because of, again, the horrible effects on your body, but also the microbes. And we've talked about this from kind of a, I don't know, holistic perspective, but there's also one simple, selfish end truth that I really don't think you can argue with if you're honest with yourself and you actually do the testing. And that's that when something is produced organically, it is just better. It is just more desirable. When you go get an organic box of mushrooms from your Whole Foods and you compare that to the cheapest non-organic mushrooms you can find from your local big box store, the flavor is almost unrecognizable. They do not resemble each other. There is a big missing picture here, which I feel some people refuse to accept. I don't know. As a I don't want to say a chef myself, but as someone who's I'm an amateur chef, I'll put
You're
it that way.
You're a little foodie too.
Are you nuts? The organic stuff is so much better. It's so much more flavorful. It's so much more desirable.
Yep.
And the more I talk
sir.
to some of these guys, like, Chris Trump, who is a large-scale organic macadamia nut farmer, this is all real stuff. He has studies showing, higher concentrations of certain micronutrients and microbial life leading to different expressions and different levels of nutrients. I don't want to cue you up and put words in your mouth, but if you could explain how and why that happens, why an organic mushroom would be so much more flavorful and desirable than a non-organic mushroom. Why is that, in your opinion?
Well, here's the thing that humans, don't like to face is that we really need those rotting, decaying things in our life to bring flavor into our life. And when we try to make things in sterile ways without rotting and decaying and, feces, manure, even green manures, when I'm talking about the compost pile and things, these are the things that make flavors. When you grow in a hydroponic system where everything is completely synthetic and water, and you find the most tasteless vegetables, you get plenty of them, lots of fruit and vegetables, really productive. But the flavor isn't there until they started experimenting with trying to do this with some organic matter involved. Like somehow, let's water, let's put some compost tea in the water, let's put some biology in there. And even in the hydroponic situation, even in like the nutrient film technique where things are really running past the roots, and it still does work. It still brings some flavor. It still brings nutrients. There's nutrients in there that we are recycling, and those recycled nutrients bring flavor with them.
Wow.
Kind of like, think about a sourdough. Okay, you this starter and you're keeping it alive for years. Part of that starter is so old now.
Right. No, that's a good point.
You're keeping the flavors, and the flavors get better year after year. It's kind of or like wine or cheese, where the flavors are enhanced as time goes by. Because of biological processes that are going on. These things wouldn't be happening in a synthetically created product.
I like that.
It would be very stable.
That makes a lot of sense, and it's kind of a more practical way to look at it. I remember once speaking to an organic farmer, and he was saying that he believes it has to do with the stimulation of the plant's immune system, that these different natural inputs, like if you are able to have lots of, like you said, basically manures in your soil combined with adding microbial like stimulants, he said that the stimulation of the plant's immune system leads to additional expressions in flavor, color in flowers pop out more. He had all these crazy claims, and he claimed it was the immune system. What do you think about that?
I haven't heard of this one yet, but it sounds interesting. It'd be nice to, read about it. What was the guy's name again?
Rutherford. Rutherford. He spoke on this. I don't know if it was on this show. He did come on this show, Joshua Rutherford, though.
Okay.
And I would be interested to, again, I don't know how much who's paying to research this? There is no big money
Yeah.
behind this, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Like you said, I would love to
That's
read something on
and
this.
what are their methods and how are they coming to this conclusion? If you talk to Elaine Ingham, she's a data fanatic. She's like, show me the data. I'll listen to your stories and your anecdotes all day, but I need to see the data.
Exactly. But I will tell you this, there's as little research as there is, the empirical evidence is there. No case maybe more so than coffee. And coffee's a tricky one. Coffee's a really tricky one because there are some farms that are farming organically but can't afford or don't want to pay for the certification. There are some farms, like all industries, who say they're organic, they get the certification, and they stop doing organic practices. So it really does depend. But if you go and you find a low quality coffee and taste the level of flavors and the different layers of flavors compared to something like Purity, it is like night and day, man. It is like drinking the finest wine versus the most basic gross slop. It really is like night and day.
Well, I noticed some, not only did we enjoy it, but what I didn't expect was that when we went and drank the coffee that we'd enjoyed so much before, all of a sudden it just was like,
Totally. And I pick out Purity because that's who I'm associated with. But really, any organic coffee, we really want people here on the Coffee Health and Science podcast to you got to drink organic. If you can find out that it's regenerative, and
that's the thing.
Yeah,
Jordan, is that we were drinking a coffee that was all those good things.
Really?
But it wasn't the Purity coffee. It ticked all the boxes.
We do some other stuff too, I'll admit.
Yeah. But it less consistent and less, it was much darker, oilier roast.
Listen, we roast for health too. We do a lot of things that a lot of organics don't. Yeah, that's true too.
It was all fair trade and shade grown and organic and all, but it didn't have the flavor and the consistency as this did.
Yeah, Purity.
And my husband had just before we got on the Purity, my husband had found a friend who was roasting her own here in town, and he wanted to support her, and so he kept getting coffee from her, but it really wasn't well done. It was really crappy.
Oh man, you can't just support local if you're going to be sacrificing taste there. But the reason I say
she feels bad.
Yeah.
We haven't ordered for her for a long time.
The reason I say drink organic is because I know some people like a dark roast, darker than Purity's dark roast. Listen, just drink. Organic is the minimum.
Purity's dark roast is nice. It's not like oily dark, but it has that flavor, that depth. And that, like you said, it was roasted with your health in mind. So you're not getting a cup of coffee that's later going to make my stomach churn.
Yeah, 100%. The fact is most coffees are over roasted. And dark roast actually contains higher levels of certain antioxidants, not the most prolific and the most common ones like your CGAs, your chlorogenic acids, but dark roasts are higher in melanoidins, and melanoidins have all sorts of crazy benefits for Alzheimer's. And so we're really actually working on health specific roasts. But yeah, when most people order a dark roast, it's roasted beyond the level of what we could consider healthy, where now you're entering the realm of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAH.
Hey, say that fast 5 times.
and that's what's in your French fries and your burnt steaks and things like that. It's a carcinogen. You just want to limit it. It's not something you can completely avoid, but we're roasting for health here. Anyways, this is not a Purity commercial, but we know when you're drinking on it and you're talking with Marybeth and she's drinking on it, you just got to mention. You just got to bring it up.
I can't help it.
CHS podcast. Good. Use code CHS podcast if you're ordering people.
That's right. I'm gonna have to keep my brain functioning. I'm not getting any younger, and so Purity helps me stay young.
Oh, Jordan. I love it. I absolutely love it.
But it is delicious.
Man, it's really though. When I went there, there's nothing. The roast is an incredibly important step, but there's nothing more important than how it's grown. I met Francisco, the farmer from La Finca Primavera. I met Oscar. They showed me the compost that they did. They showed me it was all real. It was the real deal. That's what you need.
It's so nice.
Yeah.
You can smell the compost and the coffee.
You really need to find the sources of food as best you can in your area. Not everybody has access, but the ones that are grown regeneratively, the meat that is grass-fed, free range, this stuff is important for your health. I don't care what anyone says.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and like I said, we even had some Harvard doctors on this show talking about organic fruits and
Yep.
vegetables being better for you. So it's time that we really consider this stuff, I guess, is the message that I'm putting out here.
Right. You know, even if you eat more vegetables, even if they're not organic, you're going to be better off than if you eat less vegetables. But if you can eat them organic, they're going to be that much better and that much more flavor, and you'll enjoy them more.
100%. And I worry about the
You'll be putting,
pesticides too. Really,
I was
really
going to
do.
say, you'll be putting hopefully less toxins into the environment, because if you're growing that way with biology, you're not leaching nutrients because you have the biology holding the nutrients because they want that too.
Yeah, 100%.
And they stick like glue. Those glues you're talking about, they're very, very sticky organisms, and they don't, the bacteria doesn't get washed out of the soil. It sticks to the soil super well, really, really well.
That's wild.
And it spends its whole life just gluing bits of this and that together to make its little structures that it lives in, and it also eats its own houses. So it's like, it's kind of cool.
Wow. Living in its own gingerbread house. But no, you're right.
Exactly.
The less exposure to toxins, the better. The use of enzyme products instead of chemical pesticides is a massive change. Microbial products instead of chemical pesticides. One thing I wanted to bring up here, Marybeth, an important question. I want to get your unadulterated take. What about organically grown plants, organically grown crops versus non-organic from a pest standpoint? Do you feel organic plants are more resistant? Do you have any research on that?
Yes, because plants put out chemical signals that the insects pick up. And a healthy plant puts out a different chemical signal than an unhealthy plant. And an unhealthy plant puts out a chemical signal that it comes on to the insect basically as a call to kill me. Just please take me now. I'm not loving life.
To a shark.
I'm not loving life. Take me down. I'm the one you want. Well, it's always when you see the herd of deer running away and the wolf is after them, it's the ones at the end that get attacked. It's the ones that were slow, the ones that were weak that get attacked, because that way the strong survive. And it's the same with plants. It's the same with the little microscopic biology too. The big ones run around and eat the little ones, and that's the way it works. But the cycle keeps going. And that's just one other thing I wanted to mention, was that the best sort of inputs to put in are your local decomposing plant matters, because they have the biology already on them that you need in your local, that's already adapted to your local area. It already is able to live in the climate that you're in, in the atmosphere you're in, and it doesn't have to adapt. Whereas things that come from other places, often it doesn't work as well, because they're suddenly so out of their climate that they just don't function the way that you wished they did, and that they probably did fabulous where they came from, but they might not work as fabulous where you are. If you're in a way different latitude or a way different altitude or something like that.
There is a lot of locale to it. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
If you were to take the same cultivar and grow the same cultivar of coffee right next to each other, one in a sterile soil and one in a robust, rich organic soil, the one that comes out in the organic is going to literally have more flavor, much more robust flavor profile, different expressions that weren't even there. But like you said, what would be even more ideal is if everything is localized. If the cultivar is suited to the soil and the soil has been untouched for years and years, that's when you really start to get the terroir, or however you pronounce it.
Right.
This idea of the whole environment playing in to the plant. Really interesting stuff. And with coffee, it's extra interesting because of all the different origins and all the different climates. So really, really, really cool. What you said echoed a previous guest, though, who was basically, I was speaking to an organic expert, and they were basically saying organic growing doesn't really give you any magical pest-resistant qualities. What it usually does is take care of your plant very, very well to where it's healthy and robust. And then the pests go after different, weaker plants. It's not that it provides some sort of organic shield. But then weren't we talking once? Didn't you say something about how spraying with compost tea can prevent? How does that work?
Yes. Well, on the biological level, particularly on the level of the powder mildews and those kind of, botrytis and things. When you're colonizing the surfaces of your plants with your beneficial fungus, and you leave no room available, even if a nasty spore is floating through the air, such as a botrytis spore or a powder mildew spore, there's no place for it to land and begin to colonize, because you've sprayed so much compost tea there with all the beneficial organisms. There's just no room.
Wow.
And whatever is there will easily be killed by the good guys that are already present.
So that's especially effective, not so much insect pests, but your
the power
spores.
That's the power of the compost tea, and that's the way it works to protect you against pests and mildew and things.
Whoa.
Basically by just colonizing everything with the beneficials.
That's really fascinating. I think it's super important to preserve this cycle. I want to shout out really quickly a book, but it's a documentary that I saw. I believe it was a book first. It's called The Botany of Desire by Michael Pollan, I believe. We just talked about this. You've seen this too, right, Marybeth?
The documentary I've seen is fantastic.
Oh man.
Yes.
It's really, really great. Just basically that the plants on this earth have basically been playing us by our desires. Basically the idea is the plant wants to express itself in the most desirable form to us possible. And he gives a couple different examples, for instance, how tulips came from a very, very small part of the world, but because they were able to evolve and be beautiful to us, we ended up bringing them all over the world, and they're now they're prolific. They're on all the major continents, and they're all over. They played us. They won the game. Now their species dominates the world. And he gives 5 different examples and how they've changed over time. But I think it also points to why we have to, in my opinion, preserve these natural processes. Because if you do believe in this botany of desire, which seems he pretty much proves, then why would you want to disrupt the natural process by inserting, these kind of false steps and false stages that don't exist in nature? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And humans are kind of funny because, we came into this world and it was really going fine without our help. And we just still can't get over our desire to just see if we can do better.
Yeah, you're right. It's kind of a blessing and a curse, right? Where we always want to make things better, but sometimes we end up shooting ourselves in the foot, huh?
Oh, it is hard. It is hard. That old saying, like, test on an inconspicuous spot before you commit to everything. We as humans and as a general don't like be bothered with that. It's a delay. True. So we just tend to, go through and do
learn
stuff,
our lessons
and then later on,
well. It's true. It's true. But God bless people like you, Marybeth, spreading this, coming on shows like mine, talking to thousands of people about pesticides, about nutrients. This should be taught in school.
That's what my mother said. God bless her soul. She'd be 90-something right now. And so thinking, this should be taught to every school child. Why is this not taught? Why is this hidden knowledge? Why are we not just doing things in the more intelligent way instead of just the way that we've done them for the past 100 years or the past 50 years?
We teach our kids about igneous rocks and cumulus clouds, but we don't teach them about the importance of the life in the soil that provides the food which makes us healthy. I think that's a little bit of a mistake.
Yeah. And the nutrient cycle itself, the nutrient cycle, it was going on just fine before the synthetics came into it.
Right.
In fact, it was going on much more healthy before the synthetics. Our worst problem in the past has just been overplowing.
I wonder,
tilling,
if I should
tearing up the soil.
I wanted to talk more about no-till, because that's, for those who haven't heard of this concept, no-till, it's part of this organic farming, which is you don't tear up your soil. You let roots decompose in there a lot of the time. You don't plow. You really let your soil sit, and it does a lot of good stuff. I wonder if it would be worth doing a Dust Bowl exploration or a no-till special. I don't know. I'll think about that in the future. But my gosh, Marybeth, this was a lovely episode. This was fantastic. Here we are at the end of the episode already. What a lovely recap of the soil food web and exploration of the botany of desire and why this style of farming just makes a better product no matter what it is that you're consuming. So thank you for your time today, Marybeth. It was lovely.
Hey, it just makes sense, Jordan. I like talking to intelligent life on Earth, and thank you for being a voice that lets people just talk about stuff.
My pleasure.
And, like I say, we don't have to be judgmental. There's lots of ways to get across the room. We don't all have to take the same straight line.
I love it.
But, we don't have to kill each other on the way either.
I love it, Marybeth. God bless. You're going to receive a
Keep
nice
it clean.
package from yours truly, full of coffee.
You darling
So
man.
enjoy. And
Hey, we love you and the coffee too, honey.
absolutely. Hey, we'll let you go. I know you have to run here, so enjoy your day.
Oh, yeah.
Take care of yourself.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you,
you.
Marybeth.
God bless you and your family too.
All right, take
Bye-bye,
care.
Jordan.
Bye. Isn't Marybeth the best? She's my hero. Thank you so much for listening. You guys are my hero. Thank you for being subscribed. Make sure to give us a good rating and review. We appreciate you guys. The Coffee, Health, and Science podcast going strong. Some Dr. Coffee coming back. Ildi Revi coming back for more cultivar talk. Got to explore these cultivars. Thank you all. Have an extraordinary day, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Coffee, Health, and Science podcast.